Good afternoon, Valerie Ling here. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm also the director and founder of a wonderful practice by the name of the Centre for Effective Living in the Sydney suburb of Gordon. Please check in with your high schoolers. They have been back at school and things are challenging for them. They will have to catch up on work. They may be nervous about what they need to catch up on. There may be friendship issues that they were able to sidestep while they were doing school online. They will have sleep disruptions. They may have a flaring up of depressive and anxiety based symptoms, particularly as we get closer to the winter months. I realize today is June 1, it is the start of winter. Typically in the winter months, we actually see a flare up of depressive symptoms coming through the practice, and our young people by no means are spared for various reasons, because of the drop in sunlight, the drop in activity, seasonal induced depression and mood-based symptoms can really pop up. So with our young people, we've come to understand that, sort of from around the age of 12 to 15, when depressive symptoms pop up, sometimes it is because they have emotion overwhelm and there's dysregulation in their emotions, and they haven't quite figured out how to detect what they're feeling, how to express what they're feeling, and then to regulate that down. Now, because there's been an explosion of COVID in the world, and then now there's an explosion back to school, we may start to see that some of these emotions are actually in overwhelm. So a couple of things that you want to look out for. If your child seems to be more withdrawn than usual, they seem to be more sullen, if they seem to be even more irritable than usual, if you find themselves pulling back and pulling out of activities that they used to be a part of, they're not actually partaking very much in family conversations, they're not even wanting to contact their friends, if you're finding that their sleep patterns have been unusually disrupted, if their eating patterns have changed, and of course, if you're actually starting to worry about things like seeing marks on their arms or marks on their thighs, or noticing bumps and bruises, and their mood also seems to be compromised, don't rule out self-harm. Self-harm as a way that adolescents use to cope is by no means a cry for attention, as in they're dramatizing and being over the top. I want you to think about this as an adult, right? I want you to think about this. When you're watching someone shave themselves with a close blade, how many of us actually cringe because in our body we can actually feel the instinct to be careful when we have a sharp object being close to our skin? That is our natural impulse. To override that, to be able to actually hurt yourself, and to override the instinct of fear and anxiety and push through pain to hurt yourself, is not a normal reaction. Nobody dramatizes that stuff. It is more often than not, self-harm behavior is an attempt to communicate something. Communicate an emotional pain through a physical means, to communicate a need to numb the big, swirling, dark, drowning emotions that they are feeling. Self-harm should never go unnoticed, and it always needs a conversation. It needs to be assessed. We need to know what's happening. Self-harm is also comes with a risk of impulsive behavior. They may not mean to hurt themselves deeper than what it does, but in a moment of impulsivity, danger and harm can happen. So please be watching out for your children. What you want to be doing right now is coming on side-by-side activities with them. We're all hurrying around right now trying to get our head around our work and what it means, but it can also mean that our young people may spend a lot of time on their own. So what you want to do now is to head for some routines and rituals that bring the family together, whether it's about having a 20-minute conversation after dinner, whether it's about watching your favorite TV show together, whether it's about taking the dog for a walk together. You want to have some kind of routine and ritual, and not because you're nagging them for activity, but also it provides a fantastic baseline. You see, when we're connecting with our kids somehow daily, we're also getting a sense of their baselines. We get to see where the shifts are, shifting up, shifting down from what you can see of where their levels are generally. So it actually gives us some really good baselines to whether our child is more tired than normal, more chatty than normal, more sassy than normal, or whether they're actually expressing things that are concerning, like negative trash talk about themselves. So number one, where you can, try to find some routines and rituals where you're actually connecting with your young people. Number two, it's probably not a great thing to ask them, how are you? The thing about emotion overwhelm for young people, especially when they haven't quite figured out how to notice it and have the skills to manage it, being asked that question is actually really quite overwhelming as well. You can share stories about yourself, however. You can share stories about what it's been like for you. You can share stories about how you've been feeling and what it's been like for you. And that just encourages a normalized culture that we can feel difficult things, and that may then lead to some side-by-side conversations. So side-by-side conversations is in the times when you're having activities together. A comment might slip out, an observation might slip out, and that'll just open up an entry point to just say, hey, I really care about you, and what you just said is something I'm really interested in. So number three, show interest and curiosity. This is a great time to show interest and curiosity in their world, because it communicates to them that you're not allergic to them, right? That you can and you want to be in the same space of them. One of the things that I say is that we all as human beings have an intimate, intrinsic need to be seen. And so when you're a teenager, having your interests of being of interest to your adult parents and the adults in your world is a really important thing. Keep an eye on them. Keep the conversations warm and cool. Warm as in loving, caring, and affectionate, but cool as in do not hound them with, how you going? How you going? Are you really? I don't know, because you said that, but I don't know. I'm looking at, yeah, don't do it. Be cool, people. Be cool with that, okay? There's not that very many people in adolescence worlds where they're taken seriously and where they feel like they belong. And so if we can at home keep the connections warm, but keep the interactions, cool, lay off the nagging, that helps them to have a sense that home is safe, home is where they belong, and home is where they can eventually open up. Please don't sit under stress. If your adolescent is showing signs of panic attacks that are increasing and are frequent through the day, it's not just one here and there. If it's not improving, if you're noticing self-harm behavior, if in a 2-week window you're starting to see dysregulated behavior such as eating, sleep, etc., teariness and irritability, please speak to your family doctor and encourage them to speak to a school counselor, to speak to a professional. Take care.